Right, Taura, welcome to another episode of Taura Tinzwe. We are here again trying to make sure that you understand that your perspective matters. And when we speak about these issues of fatherhood and manhood and us becoming better men in society, I think there is no better authority than the guest that we have today, Professor Hadebe. How are you, sir?
I'm well, how are you?
Awesome. Yes, I thought I was expecting me to call him that Hadebe. But
you know what's the funny thing about the prof title is that so on my WhatsApp it's a title that I use because I always say that that's where I'm heading to.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm on a journey going to that one. Yeah.
Don't do the part that you on us. But I think it's important that we kind of have you here because you are, I think, from a lot of dimensions. You're a broadcaster, you are a husband, you are a person who's got a high position at the University of Technology, Pretoria, of course, it's one at TT, and you're also a minister of the word. So in all these aspects that I look at, and you kind of always have to have somebody that you're either discipling or teaching or mentoring. What then almost inspires the passion for you to be going ahead so much about these men issues and fatherhood and sonship?
I think the one thing about it is when you know what it feels like to not have a specific thing being given to you, it then pushes you to make sure that there isn't someone else that becomes like you. So having grown up as a boy that longed to have this kind of service that I'm giving to other young men, particularly those that are from humble beginnings, that have never had an opportunity to have a father figure. And father figure directly, so in terms of either, a father that you are born of.
Sure.
So for me, that is the journey that I've traveled, that I've never had that. So because I know the pain of not having it, I then have dedicated my life to saying, I'm going to try. I don't think I've got all the answers, but the little that I have in terms of knowledge, in terms of support, I'm going to extend it to the other young men.
Sure. So that gap, in essence, that void that you had in your own life as you were growing up, what do you think perhaps would be the major negatives that came out of that you would identify and say, you know what, if potentially I had a dad or I had somebody who acted like a dad, I would have 1, 2, 3. When I look at my life, I didn't have because of that. Is there something that you would actually can identify to say you didn't have because of that?
Yeah, look, I think the first one is, financial stability. And believe it or not, in our communities, a household that doesn't have a father lacks, the necessary respect, from the people in that area. A female-headed household. I'm not saying she was not doing enough. She did, but there's certain things that I wouldn't have spoken to her about. There's certain things that our household, would have had. I mean, I think the one thing that I sometimes not share enough is that there was a point in my life where I had a stepdad, very abusive, very abusive to my mom, and there was a tender age at that time, and that also affected me because from time to time it also inflicted pain to me. And I think the one thing that even at this point in time, I'm very close with my mom. We've got a very close relationship. She'll tell me about even her relationships before she met my dad.
Okay.
How the level of abuse she endured, and this is not only from men but even from women within her family, even from her parents as well. So that sort of helped me to sort of easily understand that all children need their parents. A daughter from time to time would need a mother, but a boy would need their father. Ronald, like you now, if they say Ronald has a big head like his father, it makes things easier. Sure. It makes your head to be acceptable, And similarly with me, whenever and wherever I would go, I would receive messages that, those who knew my dad, this one looks like he's dead. But the challenge was, this dad was not there, and I wanted to be like this man, but I do not know, I don't see this man, and that was a psychological problem for me.
Sure.
And I thought it didn't affect me up until I became a married man.
And I think when you look back at that, did you actually ever have an opportunity to actually meet with your dad or see him and relate with him at a particular point in time?
And here's the funny thing. I think growing up, my mom protected me. For the longest, I thought that I wasn't aware that my dad is alive. I thought he's no more. So, and I think about age maybe 9, 10. I don't remember exactly the age. But there was a time I got sick, and they said I need to go and be done this cultural things.
Sure.
That's when I knew that I actually had a dad that was alive, and we went to Lesotho. I couldn't meet up with him at the time, and then I had an opportunity to meet up with him, and I think I was now in grade 7, 8. I remember quite vividly. I was very good at soccer. I was about to go and play for the Kaiser Chiefs Academy. So I met up with him. We had that little relationship, and it was that relationship where he would sort of send money to me, and that. But it was not necessarily a very intimate relationship.
Sure.
He had already had another family, and I had not met that family. And from what I've gathered, and I think this is just me being a child at the time, I thought, my dad is there, but he's not in my life.
Sure.
And that was that because of and this is the unfortunate thing, Ronald, because of he's not the only man doing that.
Yeah.
There's other fathers that are present, very present in their children's lives, but very absent in their presence. They can never tell you. They can never tell you if when the child enters through the door, if sharp or Rasha. They can never tell you when the child comes in if this one has been abused or is being bullied. Because it takes us, I'm telling you now, my mom can enter here at the door as, the children are busy playing with the door. My mother can enter here. She'll be able to tell me if I'm okay, if I've gained weight, or I've lost weight, if, or if, she has an interest. And I think that's the other thing. I think more than anything, I wanted a father to have an interest in
you as a person.
Yeah, but I had to develop a thick skin very quick. I had a younger brother, so I automatically said, nah man, who needs a father if they can be a father?
Sure.
So I'm grade 8, I'm playing soccer, I'm in grade 9, I'm a father, You could imagine, and I think this is something that is relatable to quite a lot of other young people, in my generation, even today. So the challenge about that was I became stubborn and very defensive. There was no man that would tell me anything.
Sure.
And that affected me till today. My mom is saying it, and till today my wife says I'm a bit selfish, and sometimes I'm in denial, but I think I am because I've told myself that no man can take care of her than me.
Sure.
You get my point? So that was instilling aggressiveness, aggression rather, stubbornness, anger, and so the only way I could sort of reflect that out was by being protective and not allow anyone, in my space. And this is why I think even my zonal pastor at CRC had a challenge with really getting through me. Even my wife had a challenge in terms of trying to, help me with. I was that one person that if I have a problem, I'll talk to no one about it. Sure. I'll find a way to solve it my own way. Yeah. And if I fail, I fail. Yeah,
I think I identify a lot with that because. For most part, I grew up without my father at home.
Yeah.
And having a mom, as you know, psychologically, I think at around age 12, 13, boy children especially, want to break out and become men themselves.
Yeah.
And without the guidance and the authority, strong authority of a father, you kind of become your own man and find your own world and define your own expectations. And that stubbornness is something that I can relate to. That rebellious nature almost. But I'm looking at, and I'm hearing what you're saying now. Think about, of course, the abuse, for example, that you're witnessing at the time.
Yeah.
Do you think it's in any way affected how you viewed how the model of fatherhood should be from this stepfather of yours?
I think to a certain extent it did, and I'll tell you why. So, because I'm a Mosotho man, the fundamental understanding was that the strength of a man is shown in dominance. The dominance will come in how a woman, should be afraid of you.
Sure.
Even in high school or primary, if there's a girl that beats you as a guy, you are weak, right? Okay. But now, because I've had these conversations with my mom, I started developing the tenacity to comprehend that I must not, inflict pain. That is not the right way of showing dominance. And I think being in church also helped me to sort of become easier. But I have to be honest. Me seeing him beat my mom, to a certain extent I thought he was right, up until I realized, because of now I had this bond with my mom, and I thought, no, it can't be right. cannot be right, but it did affect me.
Sure.
And there's certain parts, I mean, that still affects us. One of them is if I don't have money,
Yeah.
you know, I feel less of a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is worrisome because of, so excuse me, what makes a man is not his pockets. You know, it's the manner in which, in my view now, it's the manner in which he takes care of himself in terms of his mind, in terms of his discipline, in terms of his responsibility, both emotionally, psychologically, and maybe less physically, because of sometimes you emphasize the physical part so much. You know, we look at how you dress, what you drive, the kind of house you stay in, and the money that really you have, and maybe that for me now at this point in time, I've now learned that is weakness. But at that point in time,
Yeah.
I thought, no, that's not. I mean, he had beaten my mother more than once.
Sure.
I remember one night, Ronald, it's fun, we laugh about it now. He had beat her up. It was a Sunday. Monday I was going to school. We walked through a long passage in Davidson. It was midnight. We were going to my other aunt. She was carrying my younger brother. He was very, very young at the time. I was taking time, you know, and I remember other people had to hold me because of I was already carrying a bottle of a beer that he was drinking, ready to beat him with. But I forgave him, you know. It's like you know, that's how it goes. A part of me was blaming, and this is after, you know, meeting my dad. I blamed him for all those things.
Yeah.
I felt if he was.
I think you touched on something very, 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 very vital there in terms of the whole thing of importance of forgiveness. Because I think for me, the primary message really that I try to bring across in the book that I wrote about fathers and their relationship with their sons is the issue of forgiving. A lot of boys grow up without their fathers. A lot of boys grow up with drunken fathers. A lot of boys grow up with abusive fathers, you know, or even fathers that are totally not there, whether emotionally or physically. So to get to that point where you realize that, you know what, if I'm going to have to become a better man and a better father and a better husband in the future, I have to let go of the bitterness and the anger. At what point in your life do you think that trigger came through, and how did you finally deal with that issue of actually letting go and forgiving your dad?
I think there's two phases in terms of giving up. And the first phase is letting go. And I learned now that that's not giving up. I'm forgiving rather.
Yeah.
Letting go in a sense of accepting and saying, I was at a point saying that I need to respect my dad's decisions.
Sure.
You know, that he wanted to live a life that didn't have me inside of it.
Okay.
I had not forgiven him, but I had to let go. And that's the first phase. The second phase was when, I think this year, I think it was around March, because my mom has been pushing me. So the problem about our mothers is that even though our fathers have neglected us, they always want to make sure that we have a relationship.
Yes, that's true.
So my mom having forced me, also my zonal pastor forcing me, I finally went back to go and try and you know, meet up with my dad and his family. Because he used to work in the mines, and he's from the royal family in Lesotho.
Okay.
So in the process, and I was on air, I remember that day, I think it was a Monday. So I get missed calls from my brother. I get missed calls from my mother. I think about 10.
Sure.
I got worried.
That should be scary.
Yeah, so I'm busy doing a show. These things are happening. After the show, the first thing I did, I just played one song and called my mom. And she said, are you okay? And I said, yeah. I said, where are you? I said, I'm in studio. Tell me, what's the problem, you know? And she said, hey, your dad has passed away. And I said, which dad are you talking about? He said, your father.
Sure.
He's no more. And the shocking thing was, I never cried like that. I lost my grandmother, who raised me when I was, I think, a toddler. And I never thought that, it would affect me in that way. But that was nothing, that was just the tip. What affected me more was that I last communicated with my dad in 2009 when I was doing matric. And I thought that all this time, this man had neglected me, only to find that all that time, that's when he was sick and he passed away.
Sure.
All this period. So I'm bitter at a person that was normal, right? And I remember quite vividly that all I wanted to tell him was that, you're nice, I don't even have anything against you, you know. And I'm actually in a process now of just reconnecting with my dad's side.
Okay.
But the fundamental thing about forgiveness and not just letting go is that in the long run, you won't be in this position where you wish you could have had a conversation with him. Because a part of me, after hearing some of the stories and how things happened, wanted to say, how did you deal with this thing? Because it's very easy as well. And I think when you're young, you are demanding, and that's what children are entitled to do, to say, I want my dad here. You don't know the circumstances, you don't know the influence and the kind of decisions that need to happen. And I think that is the one thing that keeps on paining me. But sure, it taught me a lot about forgiveness, that you must make a sacrifice, take a conscious decision to say, I am deciding today that I'm going to forgive. Okay. Because of chances are that Ronald might not be there tomorrow.
Sure.
You might not have an opportunity to have an engagement, because of sometimes the process, and this is what I've also realized, that the process of forgiveness can never be enough up until you sort of get to comprehend the other person's side of the story, and fully and consciously. I always tell my younger brother that I could say something to him with good intentions, only to find that I've hurt him. Just because I had good intentions, it doesn't mean that I need to acknowledge the hurt that I brought to him. So I apologize on the hurt, then I explain the intention. And that is how we live as people, because of we are very different as human beings, and we will never see things the same way.
You see, the issue of forgiveness, the way it's so important to me, and why I've kind of ended up on this path of trying to get men to reconnect to their fathers, and of course connect to their sons ahead of them, is because I had an opportunity, I've spoken about it on your show as well, that 2 weeks before my dad died, we had the conversation, the difficult questions were asked, and little did I know that I was going to be in an accident and pass away 2 weeks later. So I think I just really got a window from heaven to reconnect with my dad, and to forgive and to let go before he was going to leave us. Now, there's somebody who might be watching this video and listening to what you're saying and thinking, this guy doesn't understand what my dad has done. This guy doesn't understand the level at which we had to suffer because my dad wasn't taking care of me. And now he wants to tell me to forgive. What would you say to somebody who wants to really hold on to that guilt, that bitterness, and that anger at this point in time when you are speaking about forgiveness in an instance like this?
I think for starters, and I talk about this quite a lot, to say you'll never be able to apply logic and facts if you're still allowing emotions to be clouded in the situation. I'm not saying you must not have emotions. We have to have emotions. Abuse, hate, those are sensitive things, but if you want to fix things, if you want to reach a point of logic and facts, you must deal with emotions and separate them from the real issues. Because the point here is, you need to think about your life 10 years from the head. The feeling of pain and anger that you're feeling today won't match the loss of opportunity that you would have wished you had 10 years, 20 years down the line. Because the one thing that we keep being trapped in is to think that things will remain the same. Things won't remain the same, and we won't be the same people that we are today in the next 10 to 20 years, right? So once you make a decision that you don't want to forgive your father or your mother or whoever today, be ready to not be forgiven for whatever mistake that you're going to make tomorrow. To go to the Bible, you get, and I'll make reference to the Bible because that's the book that I read mostly. Go look at the story of Paul. If Paul was not forgiven, he wouldn't be the most well-traveled person in the Bible. You cannot read the Bible and never get to be connected to the character of Paul. And that seeks to tell you that just because today you are a bad person doesn't mean that tomorrow you won't be a bad person, right? Everyone deserves a chance for forgiveness. Whether they are willing or you feel that they are deserving or not, you need to forgive them. Because it is only through the power of love and forgiveness that the world can be a better place. Here's one thing that people don't understand as well, is that when you forgive, you gain more than the forgiven. because when you forgive, you are unconsciously unblocking in the universe that you become a peace parent. But furthermore, you'll understand even when you have made faults to forgive yourselves. The reason why people don't forgive themselves when they made mistakes, you'd be aiming to pass a test or an exam, and you fail dismally at that. The reason you won't be able to forgive yourself is because you've never took time to even attempt forgiving other people.
That's true.
So by forgiving the unforgivable, it will be easy for you to forgive yourself as well, and that's a fundamental thing, right? But I need to be very, very clear on this one. You'll never get to that point up until you reach the right level of consciousness that will enable you to remove emotions. Emotions are the one thing that is delaying us for progress. Sure. Like in conversations, you must listen. When people become emotional, logic leaves the room.
Leaves the place, yeah, that's true.
So that's where the problem is. And I think even God speaks about it vividly to say emotions are the ones that make us to go and cheat. Emotions are the ones that make us to sometimes lie. Emotions are the ones that make us to be emotional in situations that are necessary. But when emotions leave, when logic comes back, that's when we must then deal with the right things. And I think in terms of forgiveness, apply logic. Think about your life in the next 10 to 20 years.
The thing is now, I see you're in an influential position. You've got a radio show that you host, and you've got a ministry platform that you have, as a minister in the church. And now, how are you using all of these platforms? Your show, for example, I see you talk a lot about manhood issues, talk a lot about fatherhood issues, and I think you're doing a great work there. Do you see that perhaps as effective a message or a package that will actually spread the message and bring about this message of transformation and hope and forgiveness that you talk about now?
Sure, correct. I think on people's lives is the one reason that, as I'm speaking to you now, when I'm supposed to be with my family like other people, is the one reason that I'm making those sacrifices. My understanding is that God places us in specific positions. God places us in specific areas, areas and places, because there's someone at the other receiving end. And my shows, and this is the proposal that I had introduced when I started at 1FM. I said I'm the new beat, and through the show that I do, the world will be healed. The world will be a better place, even if I won't reach everyone in the world, but that one person, because that's only the one thing that it takes. And this is how I count my days. And I remember when Bob Mapena was beginning to rest, the pastor there was saying, we must ask God to help us count a number of our days. And I remember one interview that Bob Mapena made, and that is the one thing that always carried me when going on air. When he was asked, why do you always travel from Centurion, to, at the time he was at Kaya FM, and he said, it is for the other person that is waiting. And for me, how I see that show, I see it as a vehicle that is ready to deliver something for someone. And the day I don't go, that's the day I'm saying to God, I'm tired, find someone else. But I think that's the dedication I've given myself to say, for as long as I've got breath in myself, I'll make sure that I'm going to touch topics that are going to be uncomfortable. But ultimately, they need to bring about change in society. They need to bring the next president. They need to bring the new world order as we preach it today. They need to bring men that won't be beating women. They need to bring women that are going to not tolerate gender-based violence. They're going to dismantle poverty and a poverty-oriented mind. Because of more than poverty, we have a challenge of a poverty-oriented mind, where people are always looking at themselves from a point of being defeated. You get the point? Because of what I've discovered was that it is not our circumstances really that make us to be defeated. It is how we view ourselves from those circumstances. I'm reminded of this famous story of two boys that were raised by a drunkard. The other one became a drunkard and the other one became a doctor. When asked, the drunkard said, I saw my dad as a drunkard and I realized that maybe this is how I was meant to be. And the other one, who's a doctor, said, I saw my dad as a drunkard and I realized this is not the life that I want to. Exactly. So those are things that we are about on that show. So we try by all means to accommodate both the young and old, but our mission is very clear. We are all about empowering young people, both from the middle class, humble beginnings, and that's exactly what we do.
And I must say, you do it brilliantly and excellently. So I think the last question that I always ask guests on the show is, if for example, this video that we are recording right now were to go viral, if by some stroke of luck, everybody in the world was going to see this video, what's the one thing that you'd like to say and give to the world right now?
I think the one thing that we had this day, and maybe it's because we are in front of big lenses, is I want to tell people that I'm not perfect. I've got so many mistakes. Maybe I've done some this morning, my wife didn't tell me. But the one thing that I won't sit here and do is to feel sorry for myself and dwell much on the mistake that I've made. I move on and soldier on it. And I want to say to you as well too, we are all a work in progress. I'm not saying you must necessarily forget the mistake you made yesterday, but I'm saying see it as a lesson and do not dwell much on it. Think about how do I become a better person tomorrow, and that's my prayer all the time when I leave the house, to say, Lord, help me to do better today than yesterday. You tell me that our show is great, and believe you me, each and every day I tell myself that it must be better than yesterday. It must be better than yesterday, because the day I become comfortable with what we've done today, that's the end of the show. So even the person at home, don't get trapped in your previous achievements. Don't get trapped in how bad yesterday was. In the same fashion, go out to tomorrow with a new energy. I once asked a pastor back at home, and I said, why is it that for today I'll do so great, and then tomorrow, for instance, I would ask him about driving. Today I would, the taxi drivers would, because normally those are the people who would make us drive better, and I'd be angry, and say things in my heart and feel bad about it, and asking why maybe today I would manage to sort of hold myself, and tomorrow not be able to hold myself. And he said, well, we remain a work in progress. Each and every day, it's an opportunity for war. So you must always be ready for war and know that if you are defeated today, tomorrow is another day for victory.
That's good to hear. Thank you very much for that. You heard it for yourself at home. Tomorrow is another day for victory, and I think you can hear in the background there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of excitement. We're on campus. TUT, it's about to go down, and I'm just going to take off my formal stuff and start dancing as well. But Prof, thank you very much for giving us your time, for giving us the opportunity. I think we really got some words of wisdom for you, and you heard it for yourself. Thank you for coming to our show. I appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you so much. And also thank you to viewers at home.
Perfect. Until the next episode of Tinzwe, see you next time.